What's up, pretty? I am so excited that you are here for this month's Girl Chat. It is the end of the year, my favorite season, and you know that means I bring on some of my favorite girls. We're going to be chatting and being organic and transparent with each of you about our journeys. And today with me is Miss Chelsi Bennett. She is going to be talking with us about her health journey, how she has become the CEO of that. So that means she runs all the things. And I cannot wait for her to share her story with each of you. So Chelsi, say hey to the girls.
Hi.
Yay. She's bomb. She's going to be great. And she's got on the perfect color for this month. You guys know that all things festive make Petra happy. So Chelsi got the message.
Yes.
I'm excited about it. So we are about to jump right in. So Chelsi, now that we have gotten my general intros out of the way, I would love for you to take some time to introduce yourself to the girls.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on today. Always an honor and privilege to be able to share my journey, my story, and who I am. And so I think like a 30-second overview, Chelsi Bennett, born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. I now reside in Midlothian, Virginia, which is right outside of Richmond. Wow. With my husband. We've been married 5 years now. I moved here 5 years ago to marry him. He is a Baptist preacher, youth pastor. And so we are, all in with serving God's people and doing it in the church world, but also, what we would consider the marketplace. We both have full-time jobs. He's bivocational. And so we love to serve, and we love to be able to help others to fulfill their purpose in life, which is really the mission of my ministry, the Life with Chelsi Foundation.
Chelsi just reminded me of something. Chelsi was actually a part of my marriage group. We did a book club, and she was actually one of my guests. And she talks about her marriage to her husband because she's young and she's married. And I was looking for women who are excited and passionate about that and who were Bible-based and faith girls. And she was bomb in that discussion, even though we had like crazy technical difficulties that day.
I remember that.
Girl. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we were both running into like another meeting, and it like took us 15 minutes to get on.
Yeah, it was crazy, but we did it. We did it.
And she had so much grace then, and she's had so much grace with me now, because I've been very excited about bringing her to you girls so that we could talk about these things. She does all the things, like you said, she and her husband work together in ministry, but they also work separately. And Chelsi has become really, really known for, at least to me, in really running her life, but not necessarily excluding others from that journey and that process, right? Because a lot of things that we see now, people go solo. I want to do things in the dark, and then, I'm going to pop out when everything's wonderful. But she has been incredibly transparent in her journey with realizing what her health needs are, what her mental health needs are, her life needs, right? Like she's changed jobs, she's moved, she's focused on her relationship, she's built friendships, she's moved away from certain friendships, she's built her health regime. Like she's done all of these things, and she has provided a window for those of us who are on the outside and who need some help and figuring out what that is. And so I really want to talk about what that current passion pursuit is for you. I kind of brought it up a little bit. I know it's a little different from your professional job because, like you said, you are bivocational. You are gifted. That's what she means, y'all. She's absolutely gifted. She works in corporate, but she does have passions. And I'm talking about those with you all today. But I want to talk about how all that started and what your motivation is behind that.
When I think about serving and service, I just think back to, for me, my early childhood. I was born to two teenage parents over 30 years ago. My father was incarcerated for the first few years of my life. And I like to jazz it up and say that I was raised in the urban core in the beginning of my life, but it was the hood. But the urban core when I want to jazz it up. And what I saw around me really shaped me in terms of wanting to be a voice for the voiceless. And so that's always something I've wanted to do, which is why I always wanted to become an attorney. I always wanted to be involved in politics. I didn't know what that would look like. And so I've had my taste of politics, and, now exploring other ways to be able to serve people and to be their voice and to be their advocate. And so, again, my upbringing, I think the trauma I saw externally within my neighborhood, but also when I think about my journey today of where I am from, seeing a therapist weekly to making sure that I am taking care of Chelsi, also goes back to some of the other traumas that that happened to me as a child and growing up and learning how to be whole and healed and really understanding that your parents and your family can only give you what they have. And so as an adult, I have come to this place where I realize that I'm responsible for my wholeness. Like, Jesus has given me access, he's given me authority, but you can have all that and not actually utilize it. And so I'm at that place in my life where I am, intentionally doing the hard work, literally the hard work,
that.
allowing the Lord in therapy to, do heart surgery, okay, and dig back into childhood, into where I am. And so because of my upbringing, I've always had a passion to serve, but particularly women, because the easiest way to put it when I think about the Life with Chelsi Foundation is I want to help other little Chelsis, other little girls who are growing up in similar situations, and their moms, which is the focus of the foundation right now. Our signature events are around helping new and expecting moms facing difficulties, because I know, seeing my mom, what that was like. And so, that's what drives me. Of course, I have to say, oh, Jesus, right? Because if it's up to me, to your point, it can be so easy, especially as a type A person, as someone who's pretty independent, to want to go solo. But I'm so grateful for my husband, because he has helped me to understand the power in community. And, when you're living, making decisions, you want to do all of that in a community, one that's healthy, one that's godly, Bible-based, because we can be our greatest strength, but we can also be our greatest weakness.
I think that is so true. And I love the perspective of, yes, I came from this. This is a thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to break you. And some of us may not have grown up in the urban core, but we have our own traumas, right? And there are things that we don't love and that were hard and that it was difficult to process and navigate through, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to stay there. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there wasn't some goodness to be found. Because there's something about when you talk about Life with Chelsi Foundation and how you saw these things, and so it has propelled you to grow these things.
That's right.
Right. And that's key, because so many of us will see these things, will be bound up by these things, and like, we're going to get as far away from this as we possibly can. We don't want anything to do with it. We'll wipe our hands of it. But I love the way that you deliberately reach back and you choose to stay connected. You choose to make a difference. You choose to grow that area, and you choose to give them voice, because they don't always have one. That's right. Sometimes we don't have one. If we're really honest,
right?
If we're really, really honest, we don't. But to really embody that and to hold true to that and to say that that is your passion is huge, especially when you have these opportunities as an attorney, working in corporate, having done politics, you have access to quite a lot. But the fact that you choose to give access to others, I think that's kind of huge. I think that's huge. For me, I do, like, you know what I mean? Because again, it is so important when you think of faith, girls, to remember that Christ gives all. And so we're supposed to emulate that too. It's not always about what we get. It's not always about the platforms. It's not always about that, but it really is about the giving. It's about the service. It's about the active discipleship, which is what I think you're really talking about. This is active discipleship, putting your hand to the plow.
Yeah, and it's also so important for us to realize and understand and keep in the forefront of us, if you have to put a sticky note on your computer, on your mirror, this is all for God's glory, right? And so this isn't, to your point, is some of this stuff comfortable? Is some of this stuff easy? Absolutely not. I mean, it would be, I'm in corporate. And so it would be much easier to not have, a ministry, but I am who I am. And I show up to work every day. I showed up in my interview fully myself, who I was, which is a Black female who's a Christian, married to a pastor, and has a ton of skill sets and experiences that would benefit the organization. And so but that's not always easy when you talk about diversity and inclusion, because sometimes what we see in the mainstream media of how Christians are portrayed and how they're treated, I mean, that can have an impact. And so, I just encourage anyone out there, if you're in corporate, or even wherever you are in this in this season of your life, show up fully as yourself, show up who God created you to be, because either way, you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be uncomfortable if you don't do what he says and what he's called you to do. And when you follow him, you're still going to be uncomfortable, right? Because you're fighting against the flesh. But there's this protection over there, right? Because there's over 7,000 promises in the Bible. Like, there are things that you get to hold on, that you get to believe in when you are obedient. And so make sure you're honoring the covenant that you have in your relationship with Christ, and do the hard stuff knowing that you're not alone.
I love that. And I think that it's also really important for the girls to remember that the word says that he's bound by his word. So if there are 7,000 promises, he has to fulfill 7,000 promises. He has to do that thing, right? And so whatever you're worried about, it's already been answered. It's already been done. It's already been handled, right? And you were talking about being uncomfortable. And you were talking about how you came into this space. And you're like, I was fully myself. They could take me or leave me, but I was going to be myself when I came in this room, right? And it made me immediately think of how your gift will make room for you. But it doesn't say that it'll be comfortable when it makes room. Making room means you have to move things out of the way. You have to squeeze in sometimes, and it has to be different. It's not always going to be pleasant, but there will be room made for you. But you show up as yourself, as he's called you to be. He takes care of the rest.
He does. He's faithful. He's so faithful. He had to swear by his own self, because there was no greater. And so when we think about who he is, he tells us in Psalms 34, the young lions may grow weak and weary, but those who seek me shall lack no good things. And so as we keep our eyes on the prize, there's just these promises that will continue to remind us, even in the difficulties, of who he is and who he's always been and who he'll continue to be. And so it's, will you surrender so that you can be used for his glory?
Which is your only purpose. That's what the word says. We are created to effectuate his glory in the earth. We're not created to feel good. We're not created to have all the things, even though we can have all the things, but we're created to effectuate his glory in the earth. And I love that. So today we're talking about, the title of today's episode is Becoming the CEO of Your Health, Mind, and Spiritual Growth. So I want to dive into how you have shifted from passive to authoritative when it comes to holistic health. And I use those words very loosely, but when I tell you this girl runs all of these things, I'm not doing any of that stuff anymore. I've completely changed my whole, output on this. I want us to talk about that, because just as you're passionate about women, you've also become passionate about taking care of you as God has called you to. I think that goes to the scripture of taking care of his temple.
Yeah. So for me, I've had different health issues literally for over 2 decades. I can remember, just being in the doctor's office a lot. I didn't want to go to the doctor as a teenager, just so many different issues. A lot of stomach issues and headaches. And I would go through all these tests and they would say, hey, we think it's just stress. I mean, I remember probably about 13 years ago when I had my first colonoscopy, and, they were trying to figure out what was going on. Some initial outlook, they thought that I had colon cancer. And so they scheduled this colonoscopy right away. Thankfully, I did not have colon cancer. And they didn't have many answers. And so where that left me was in this place of, I was just still in limbo. And then, so not only was I having these gastrointestinal issues, I was having gyno issues as well. And so that resulted in, I don't remember, that was probably about 10, 12 years ago as well.
Jeez.
Just being placed on birth control because they couldn't figure out what was going on. They did test for PCOS, I remember. And I didn't have that. I mean, I can remember some of these appointments and hearing these results vividly,
yes.
And so all of this stuff has been going on for years and just trying to find solutions. And really, as I look back, there have been Band-Aids put on them. And one of the things I would share to anyone who has been going through issues, and you may feel like how I felt for so many years, which was, I may be like this for the rest of my life. They may never find answers. They may never, but I tell you to not give up, because it was here in Virginia that I really found answers, right? And I think that's so important for us to know, is that when you understand how doctors are trained, I believe there are amazing doctors out there, and I don't blame any of my doctors, because I believe that they did everything that they knew how with the information that they had. But if you're having a ton of health issues, find you a lifestyle medicine doctor. That's what my PCP is. If you're having, one of the things that I have over 7 diagnoses that we can name.
Wow.
Some of the things we may never know. And that's one of the things that I love about my PCP, because she said, listen, we have the names for some of these diagnoses, which is great, but some things we may not ever name, but you know your body better than anyone else. And so you listen to your body, and, you come in when you need to come in, you change things as you need to change, like you are in control. And so to my journey, it was last year, really in the last 2 years, that I've really been able to get some answers. From a gyno perspective, I was diagnosed with adenomyosis, which is the rare and aggressive form of endometriosis. Some of you all may know Gabrielle Union. She had it, and that was what they later found out was the cause of her 8 to 9 miscarriages. And so found that out, but it took, test after test. And I have to say, for me, I've made a point where all of my doctors, I'm thinking, are Black women. That was a decision that I had to make, right? For me, because I had also had experience. So I've been diagnosed with alopecia. And I remember when my hair was first coming out a few years ago, I went to a doctor here in Virginia. Thankfully, I don't remember the guy's name, but he was a Caucasian guy. And he said, you can't have alopecia, because if you had alopecia, your scalp will be shiny. Well, as I know from my current dermatologist, alopecia is hair loss. Your scalp doesn't have to be shiny. Or, no, if it's shiny, that means there's permanent damage, right? But that's what he knew.
That's what he knew.
Right. I don't think that he didn't want to treat me. That would have been more money for him. When I thought about it, it's like people were helping me the best way that they could. And so, all of that to say, it has been a journey. It's been over 20 years, but 2 years ago was adenomyosis. Since then, I've been diagnosed with maintenance insomnia. Last year was a really big turning point, which is really when I became the CEO of my health. And that was when I was diagnosed with IBS. And it's because all the other tests came back negative: celiac, thyroid. And so I went to an allergist. I was pricked over 100 times in my back. They did these other tests in my skin. We found out about my egg allergy through a blood test. It didn't even show up when they pricked my skin.
Wow.
And so I ended up having to go on this, what I will say is a very rigorous diet. It's an elimination diet called FODMAP, but it was life-changing. I still remember crying in the aisle of Whole Foods, because when you started, no onion, no garlic. And so I had to make all my dressings, and
oh my gosh.
It was intense. But I sit here a year later. October is when I celebrated my 1 year veganversary, because I'm vegan.
All the things.
Yes, I'm vegan and gluten-free. And it has been, it's just been life-changing in terms of before, as I was sharing just about them doctors not being able to figure out, and it's like they were slapping Band-Aids. I would walk around for weeks just feeling nauseous, wake up in the middle of the night, weeks feeling nauseous, and so I can't tell you how many pregnancy tests I've taken, because, you say stomach aches and not nausea, and they're like, oh, well, you have to take a pregnancy test. And I'm like, well, I'm on birth control continuously, or some, form of birth control in a way that would help with the gyno issue. And so, it fatigue, headaches, back pain, it was, I felt sick a lot. And so not being in that place has helped me realize how bad it was.
I bet. Girl, talk about realizing what actual joy is after you've been through this season. You're like, oh, okay, this is what he's talking about. This is the difference, right? Like when I'm able to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. And like you said, you don't have all the answers, but what you have been able to plug in has really improved the quality of your life. And sticking to it has been, I think, what saves your life, really, honestly.
I would agree. So when I think about joy, as we know, joy is a decision, which is different than happiness, right?
Yes.
And so it came to this place, especially when I was on that FODMAP elimination diet, which was just, again, rigorous. And it was tough. It was
Yeah.
really, really tough,
Yeah.
right? Um, but it was, okay, I have some answers.
Mhm.
I have the power at this place where I am to make change. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah. I mean, I was a steak and potatoes girl. I mean, date night was steak, potato, lobsters, macaroni, and cheese. I mean,
Yep. Right. No, that's me.
yeah, I mean, this, and so to leave it in,
Yeah.
and I have to share, there was like this month, because I went back because I love to take pictures, which has helped me remember my journey, especially during that part. There was about 30 days or so where I was vegan, but I was thinking about becoming a vegan, which is a vegan that eats seafood,
Oh,
right?
okay. 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 Got it.
Because I have an egg white allergy, I knew eggs was out.
It's
So it
out.
wasn't a pescatarian. It was either vegan or vegan, right?
Understood. Okay.
And so, but I started getting sick eating seafood.
Girl, what?
I started getting sick eating seafood. I think that was Jesus, because from a health perspective, I still could have eaten clean seafood, right?
Right.
Making sure I wasn't eating bottom feeders, but I started getting sick with the seafood, and it was just like, okay, this is clear. This is what I need to do. But to get back to your question, it was a decision that I had to make, but one that I've had to continuously make, right? It wasn't just a one-time thing. I mean, my husband has not been called to go vegan, and he'll tell anybody that. And I'm perfectly fine. For me, what's important is that when he makes the dinner reservations, he knows to ask that they have a vegan and gluten-free menu, and then my wife has an egg and wheat allergy. And I'm good. All that to say, he still eats steak. Like, I have no problem with him eating steak in front of me. Like the second time he did, I was like, do I really have to give up? But it's a continuous decision that I make to be joyful, and to not feel restricted. I've had to change my outlook of this is freedom, because I could see not having meat and cheese or regular cheese, because I've been finding some good vegan cheeses.
Okay, I was gonna ask. Okay.
That I could see it as a restriction, but now it's like, I've tried so many new things as a vegan. I'm eating more vegetables than I've ever eaten in my life. This is freedom, and it's freedom because my body feels better. It's freedom because my mind feels better. Because it is so true that the food we eat impacts every area of our lives.
Everything.
And so from sugar, from gluten, these things are causing inflammation. These things are causing the headaches, the stomach aches, the back pain, the stiffness. And so
the lack of sleep. It's a thing. It's a thing. It's a whole thing. And so when I hear you talk about this, one, I continuously hear obedience is better than sacrifice. Obedience is better than sacrifice. Be obedient to the plan. Be obedient to the plan. Even when it feels funny, you were like, yeah, I thought about doing this. That ain't work out so well. I need to stay over here. I need to do this. I need to do this. And it really is like, God is in the details. Even when it seems like this is just random, it's about food. It's not. Everything circles back to him if you look at the bigger picture. And also when I'm listening to you here, would you say that choosing to follow this, choosing to see this as freedom would be the advice that you would give to those who may struggle with balancing bad news or uncertainty and reclaiming their lives for better?
Absolutely. This is freedom. Whom the sun sets free is free indeed. And sometimes that comes from that physical doctor, that you're sitting in front of. Is going to come through those test results, because if what you were doing or have been doing was working, you wouldn't be in the doctor in this place, right? And so, in what caused whatever you may be going through, maybe because of you, or maybe genetics, but it comes to this place where you have to decide, how do I want to live the rest of my life? Do I want to live the rest of my life in pain, discomfort, constantly in the doctors, having all these tests? Or do I want to make a change, which will be hard, right? I'm not saying that this is easy. It will be hard, but I'm also sharing with you that it's not impossible. And once you get to the mountaintop, you'll look back down and be like, oh,
I'm
I
here.
did this.
Yep.
I did this. I did this. And, you know, you'll learn your body. You'll learn, because there, right now, one of the things, especially with all of the hormones and stuff that's put in foods, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
it's still in 5 years, you could find out that you have another allergy, right? And you have to
Yeah,
change it.
that's true.
You have to eliminate it, but you've been through this process and you will remember, hopefully, what it feels like to feel good,
Mm.
that the things that are holding you back. I talk to so many women, and meat, the cheese, people want real macaroni and cheese. And I'm like, that's really good. But especially when you're dealing with inflammation and gyno issues,
Yeah.
you should be staying away from dairy. That is causing, that's affecting your fibroids. That's affecting your endometriosis.
Wow.
Cut out dairy, cut back on the sugars. Like this, as I continue to learn more about food and just its impact, it's like, okay, and here's another point.
Yeah.
With some of this, for some people, they don't have to go vegan. You don't have to go completely gluten-free like I did. But when you learn more about how this impacts your body, I pray that you would do better, right? And so it may be that, you only have 1 cup of coffee. If caffeine is something, like, you have to learn your body, right? That's the other thing that's been so important in this process to me, is because as I've learned my body, thankfully, the form of IBS that I have, I can have coffee, because there's a form of IBS where you cannot have coffee. Right?
Oh, girl.
See, so learn your body, see it as freedom, know that there is so much more on the other side, and that it's a continuous process. And there's people out there who can help you. I'll talk to anybody. People message me all the time for asking questions, recipes, etc. You can do it. And this is the last thing I'll say. You're worth it. You're worth the change that needs to be made. And so don't be bound by what you've always eaten, the collard greens with the ham hocks, the steak medium rare, the fried chicken and macaroni and cheese on Sunday dinner. That was great. You experienced it, but be free, sis. If this is not what is good for you and your body in this season of where you are, be free, so that you can truly, as we were talking about purpose and passion, you got to be whole physically, mentally, and emotionally, because the other thing that I've learned is how food impacts my mental and emotional health, and how it impacts your hormones. So there's so much information out there. There's so much that can be said, but what is most important is for you to make a decision that you believe you're worth it.
I love that. I would probably say that's probably one of the greatest lessons that you've learned, becoming the CEO of your health. As I'm listening to you talk, I can feel your energy, and you're just like, this is it. If you get nothing else, get this. There is freedom in moving. There is freedom in changing. There is freedom in walking away from things that are comfortable. There is freedom in choosing yourself and your health and your mental health, your spiritual health, all those things. Because I know, even when you were talking about coffee, everybody knows me. I drink coffee. Okay. I have a whole YouTube channel devoted to coffee dates on I drink coffee, but even I had to learn, I cannot have it every day, all day long, because it actually sends me topsy-turvy if I take in too much of it. Right. And so realizing that about myself, yes, you enjoy this, but it's also hurting you when you're having it in excess. You got to learn how to trim back. And so instead of seeing it as a defeat, oh my God, I'm giving up my favorite thing, it was, now you can enjoy your favorite thing without the headaches.
Yes.
Or the horrible sleep. Or your skin erupting, all of those things. I think that it makes a difference, and it really can just be small changes. And then it can go to larger changes as you see how your body is reacting and what your body is needing. So I definitely hear that. I mean, I've had to do that with my son. Sterling has really, really bad eczema, and changing up his diet and what he's putting on, even what's in those products, that makes a difference. And so any little change can have a huge impact if you're willing to do it. So there is definitely freedom in that. I love that. I love that word. I don't think I would have used it, but I will use it. I will absolutely use that moving forward. Absolutely use that. So I want to ask you what advice you would give to those who want to give up or who do because they believe that what God has called them to is difficult now that there is an uncertain prognosis or hard prognosis with their health. Because you have a lot that was on your plate that could have had you walking away and being like, yeah, I'm good on this. I'm done. I'm going to look out for me. I'm not going to be doing life with Chelsi. No, we're done with all this. Since you did this, I'm out, God. You know what I mean? So what advice would you give to those women who want to or who choose to give up?
First thing I would do is grieve your old normal. Like this isn't, again, I didn't just wake up and say, oh my gosh, I'm going to be vegan for the rest of my life. I share with you all, I was thinking about being a vegan because I was like, I still want some lobster and some scallops and some shrimp and some crabs. And I know some of them bottom feeders, but I wanted what I wanted at that time, right? But I just had to grieve the past, grieve what my old normal was going to be. I had to, and in that was a lengthy process. I mean, I would say even until this year, because I had to learn how to not be ashamed when I went into a restaurant with my husband or with friends and have to list off all these allergies and make sure that people are changing their gloves and they're using a different surface. And even so much that there's a major chain here in the United States that I can't eat it. They basically told me, don't come back. And so it was a process. And I just would encourage you to go through the process, to grieve it, to know there's going to be ups and downs and how long it takes. You know, it's just going to be different for whatever it is that you have to go through. So that's the first thing I would say. Grieve your old normal, grieve shed those old weight so that you can be free. And then I would encourage you to not do it alone. There is so much information out there. YouTube, I mean, Google, Instagram, people, I have people who reach out to me. I'm helping someone now who just received a celiac diagnosis, right? And so walking through that with them and some other issues and fibroids that they're having and being there with them because, I'm gluten-free, fibroids, adenomyosis. And for those who don't know about adenomyosis, what makes it so interesting is that it can only be cured and technically diagnosed via hysterectomy, right? And so we got to this place because I had so many different procedures. I had a surgery, and based off of everything, it was like the only thing that's left is that you have adenomyosis, right? And so it was the information, it was hearing Gabrielle Union's story and knowing I'm a woman of faith. I like to say that I am also pragmatic, right?
Yes.
Knowing that I may not be able to carry a child and what does that look like for me and my family, right? Because that was her issue. She would get pregnant.
And she couldn't carry.
And so what does that look like? And just being upfront with where I am, what it may look like, and knowing in the natural what this prognosis means, right? It doesn't have to win. It doesn't have to be the end of the story because we serve the God who is the healer. Yet we also don't know how he's going to heal us and answer those dreams and promises that he's giving us. And for us to be open for what that looks like, if I'm not able to carry, does that look like surrogacy for me, right? That doesn't take away God fulfilling his promise to, multiply our family if that's what we decide to do. And so just knowing those things will help you to walk through the journey, because if you grieve as you go through so that you're able to see with new lenses, as you go through this journey in community, you learn, you'll grow, but you'll have people there to lift up your arms when, you feel down, when you feel overwhelmed, when the doctor said that you need to exercise 30 minutes every day, but you just got this new job. Like, this is like real life, but you do it through process, through honoring God, being in community.
I love that. I really, really, really love that because it's something that you can sink your teeth into. It's not these highfalutin ideas like, okay, well, how do we do that? It's something that you can touch. It's something
Yeah.
I can do this. I can take small steps. I can make this happen. And I loved what you said in the beginning. Your process is your process. And so it'll take you time. There's no time limit on it. You just have to stick to the process. Right. Like, I think, again, obedience is better than sacrifice. Like, whatever that looks like for you, walking that out, committing to that, and honoring yourself, honoring God, and honoring the story that he's writing, not necessarily the one that you are. Because I think that becomes a part of it too, right? Like, we have
That's
these
right.
expectations and these dreams and ideals, and nothing's wrong with them, but they may not necessarily be in the same chapter he has in it.
That's right. You know, something else I'll add, just as a form of encouragement. I've been vegan for a few months. I got my blood test back and realized that my inflammation was on high. My inflammation was so high, my doctor said, I'm surprised, like, all of your hair hasn't like fallen out, right? My body was that inflamed.
Wow.
My glucose was high. One of my cholesterols were high. Now, I was vegan, right? And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
but again, as we talk about process, I had been eating a certain way for 30 years. And did I think
Understood.
that my body was just going to rid all those things? And it was a slight blowback, you know, because one, I didn't want to hear the news. Two, I didn't want to hear that I had to cut down on sugars, which is a really big thing for me. Like salt, salt's not my issue. Sugar, carbs are not even my issue. Sugar is my issue because for some reason I'll eat a ton of vegetables, but I won't eat fruit, right? And so this is still a journey for me. And I just want to just encourage someone, not only those who are starting, but those who are like in the middle of the journey. And you've been doing everything right, which I thought I was, but don't give up. Because my last blood test showed that everything had went down. My glucose was so high that I was close to being, oh my gosh, I forget the terminology. But it was I forget. I can't think of the term, but my glucose was so high that I was at risk of being something. And I made changes. I cut back on the chocolate chip cookie. You know, I cut back on things. And here I am now a year later. And my doctor's like, okay, you know, add these vitamins in, but you are doing much better. So just keep going, my friend. Don't give up. Your process is your process.
I love that. I think it is the perfect conversation as you prepare to enter into a new year. There are going to be some things that you are going to have to change, you're going to have to shift from, and it may not be comfortable, but stick to it. It's your process. It means it's for you. It's for your good, right? This isn't going to take anything away from you. This is not talking about, what is it they do at the beginning of the year? That list of stuff.
Resolutions.
Those things. It's not the same.
No.
It's not the same. Okay. It's not the same.
No.
That's like me saying I'm going to stick to keto, you know, like it's not the same. Okay. I'm doing that for a very specific reason. I'm going to do it for 3 or 4 months. And I know for a fact, Petra Michelle is going to put it down. Okay. That's a resolution. Okay. This is not the same thing. This is really becoming the CEO, as in you are in charge. You are making these definitive decisions to change the course of your life. And you're going to have to do that over and over again. This is not going to be a one-day thing. It's not going to be a comfortable thing. And sometimes you're going to have to give up some of those favorite things.
That's right.
But you're going to find some new favorites, because I've seen some of your recipes. They look bomb.
You know, I'm starting to feel myself a little bit as more non-vegan people eat my food and they're like, oh my gosh. One of my highest compliments was last week. I think that was last weekend when I had my Friendsgiving, and one of my friends who's not vegan, she said, this is so good. I'm not even missing meat right now.
You win. You do. Anything is possible, y'all. Anything is possible if you choose the freedom to explore it.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's it. So I'm excited. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. Before we go, I want you to share with the girls how they can follow you, get in contact with you, and donate to Life with Chelsi Foundation.
Sure. I am on social media at Chelsi H. Bennett, as well as my foundation, the Life with Chelsi Foundation, is at LWC_foundation. To donate to the foundation, go to lwcfoundation.org. Right now, we're in the midst of our 2021 holiday give back drive, where we are accepting donations because we're going to be giving out holiday baskets filled with baby supplies, as well as providing free access to therapy for new and expecting moms facing difficulty. So really excited about what we're doing, and most importantly, the people that we'll be able to bless and just be another example of God's love to them during the season.
I love it. So y'all make sure that you go check her out, that you follow her on Instagram, on Facebook, that you make sure that you're donating, because we want to help build her as well, just as she built us today with her conversation. So again, thank you, Chelsi, for joining us. It was
Thank you so much for having me.
So you guys, this is it. This is the end of the year. I can't wait to see you in January. We're going to have some amazing things. I'm switching things up a bit next year. So I'm excited to introduce you to some new projects and some new ways that we are going to connect. So I will see you in 2022. Bye, girls.